And good day to you, Willard Shepard at Willard Shepard Law and Media here on the Miami Community News Network. And we have a special show today because we're focused on the four-legged friends that we have here in Miami-Dade County and across South Florida, and two wonderful community servants who do their very, very best to make sure that animals have great homes and great medical care throughout our community. And at the end of our program, we want to certainly let you know if you need any assistance caring for your animal and or pet, exactly how to do that. And Miss Yolanda Berkowitz with FOMA, who we're going to find out a lot about and all the great things that you're doing in our community. And here in Miami-Dade County, my neighbor and my friend and our Animal Services Director, Annette Jose. Ladies, thank you for coming in. I know you've been busy all morning. You have your work gear and shoes on today, taking care and trying to provide as much food for our four-legged friends throughout across Miami-Dade County. So first of all, tell us about the Friends of Miami Animals, what you've been up to. We know what you've been up to, but we want to let our community know.
Thank you, Willard. Thank you for having me. Friends of Miami Animal Foundation focuses on addressing the root causes of pet homelessness. And through COVID, we've seen that the lack of access to vet care, the cost of vet care, and all the housing insecurity and all the issues we're seeing are forcing people to surrender their animals. So we focus on providing spay-neuter grants, pet retention grants, and the reason I'm in warehouse sneakers today is because we've got a truckload of pet food and supplies coming in. So 35,000 pounds of supplies that will be distributed through Farm Share for the families that they serve with food insecurity. And then we're also making some available to cat trappers and animal services and to some other partners. So our goal has always been to focus on animal services because that is the cornerstone of animal welfare. So we look for ways to support programs that they have and also to create programs for them. And it's terrific work, and I'm very grateful for it.
Yes, well, all of us who live here in Miami-Dade County are residents are certainly grateful for all that you do. And Ms. Director, tell us about that. Some people that don't have animals, don't have pets, think, oh, I'm not affected by this, but they really are.
They really are. The shelter has a capacity for 350 dogs and about 100 cats. Right now, we have about 650 dogs, so we're struggling with that overcapacity issue. But then organizations like Yolanda's with FOMA, they help us, number one, provide resources in the community. It's a prevention service, if you will, where if people have the resources they have in the community, then they won't necessarily come to the shelter or have to surrender their pets. So it's really important to work together in the community to help them have access to veterinary care, as she mentioned, and to food or any other resources that they need.
Address the health aspects of this for our community. For, like I said, many people don't have pets, but they're impacted by what the health circumstances are. And that's something we all need to take into consideration. Absolutely.
So in 2019, Yolanda and her foundation donated a WOW Mobile. It's a Wellness on Wheels mobile veterinary clinic that goes into veterinary deserts to provide vaccines, microchips, and just basic wellness to community residents who don't have access to care or can't afford it. Again, we know the healthier our community pets are, the better it is for the shelter because those pets don't end up at our doorstep. Additionally, pets that do come to the shelter, they're usually struggling with some kind of medical or behavioral issue. Again, community partners like FOMA and others out there will come out and take that pet and provide veterinary care that is much needed. We depend on our rescues to help us with those pets that we can only provide stabilization for, but not long-term care.
She used the word desert, and we're obviously not in Arizona. So define that for us and what that means. And I believe those would be areas that you would target for these kinds of services.
So vet deserts are communities where there are no vets available. And Animal Services actually has a heat map that if you look at, you can see.
I got to do a timeout. How is that possible?
Because
what you just said, and I'm sorry to interrupt you, but I mean, that's alarming to me. How is that possible in Miami-Dade County that we would even have that conversation, what you just said?
Well, historically, vet clinics are in higher population areas and more affluent areas. They're not necessarily going to go into a community where people are struggling to pay their bills or where they don't really have the access to vet or don't have the ability to provide care for their animals. It's not a deliberate thing. I think it's just business decisions that they make about where to locate themselves. So we end up with all of these vet deserts where not only are there no vet clinics around, but also many of the residents take public transportation to work, or they share one car with their family, so they can't even get to a vet clinic. So the Wowmobile was started. It was just a happenstance thing. It was a lucky break that we got. It was supposed to be a high volume spay-neuter vehicle, which the foundation purchased through one of our founders. And when we realized with the shelter that it was not a spay-neuter vehicle, the shelter director, the former director, and the staff decided that let's try this. Let's try a wellness vehicle to provide free services. So, one of the things addressing pet owners or people that don't have pets in the community, my background is in social services. My background is in advocating for kids in care. And I know the difference that one person can make in the lives of people who don't have access, who don't have resources. And the human-animal bond is a really serious, and it's a very, very real thing. It's been shown that when you're petting an animal, your blood pressure goes down, your breathing is more relaxed. So we know the value that animals have for people. Through the foundation, we've helped unhoused individuals provide care for their dogs, mostly dogs. And the love and the dedication they have to their animals, even when they're living under a tarp, even when they're living on the street, is really inspiring. So I think for all of us in Miami-Dade County, we have to be concerned with everyone in our community. Whether you have a dog or not, whether you have a cat or not, we want everyone in our community to thrive. And so those of us who can, with dogs and cats or without cats and dogs, I think it's important that we give a hand up to those that don't have the resources we have or the access that we have. So it does impact our community. And when you have people surrendering pets to our shelter because they can't afford housing because it's too expensive or they can't provide medical care, that impacts every single resident in Dade County and every taxpayer. So the goal is to address some of those needs, even if it's plugging a hole here and there, addressing the needs so that everyone in the community is elevated through this work.
I've talked some about, or asked both of you some about the impact on people that don't have pets from a health perspective for our community, in a sense of if we're not doing a lot of spade and neutering, if disease is spreading amongst animals that don't receive proper veterinary care, it can impact those of us with two legs in terms of medical circumstances and conditions as well. So could you just address that portion of this?
Yeah, so the spay and neuter is really the way that we're going to impact the overpopulation crisis. We know that during COVID, we stopped doing spay and neuter services in order to allow the hospitals to have the PPE and the supplies. So now we're seeing the consequence of that pause in spay and neuter services. We are actively working to increase spay and neuter throughout the community and make it accessible and even free for community residents. So since October, we've been able to provide about 18,000 spay-neuter services. A lot of that has been in partnership with FOMA and other community partners like Miami Vet Foundation as well. We all recognize that the way to combat that overpopulation issue is to provide as much spay-neuter as possible. So that's our first goal. The second is, of course, access to veterinary care. And like I like to remind people, the shelter can only do so much when it comes to veterinary care, almost like an urgent care, where you go there, you get a quick diagnosis, we're able to tell you what it is you need, but from then on, we need someone to step in and provide that long-term care. Rescue partners do that. They pool if one of our dogs has cancer or if they had to have an amputation. Yolanda will tell you that most of her foundation is targeted towards medical rescues. So our goal, again, is stabilizing the dogs in our community and cats as well, but also doing some prevention of overpopulation through spay and neuter.
Is there a number that the county has and that they track and bring to you that shows how many, I'll just use the word strays, whether they be cats or dogs, canines, that are in Miami-Dade County? Are we able to put some definitive numbers on that?
The cat population is really hard to determine. Some numbers are about 300,000, and the estimates are based on our current population of almost 3 million residents. That's what best practices does as a calculation. Of course, we're continuously offering TNVR services. That's trap, neuter, vaccinate, and release. And our goal is always to do between 20 and 25,000 cats. That's just Miami-Dade Animal Services. There's other organizations out there providing spay-neuter services to cats. So as a community, we are probably doing about 50,000 spay-neuter services for cats, at least. Now, for dogs, the stray population there is a lot harder for me to determine because we have that large agricultural area in our community, and reports are that there's dozens, if not tens of, dozens of dogs that are running loose in that community. So what I can tell you is we take in about 600 dogs a month. Even though we're trying to tell the community, please hold on to dogs if you find them, we still bring in over 100 dogs a week through our enforcement team, police officers doing stray pickups, or just dogs that appear at the shelter that are injured and in a condition that we must take them in.
Yolanda, tell me about this medical aspect of what you were doing that Annette was just describing, and being able to give animals the vet care that they wouldn't receive, otherwise.
So the medical rescue I do personally. Friends of Miami Animals Foundation really focuses on the root causes of pet homelessness. I am a medical rescue junkie. When I see a dog that is critical at the shelter, or a dog with a broken leg that sits there week after week after week, I often will rescue just on principle, because I can't stand the thought of a dog losing a leg when I know that a few $1,000s will fix the leg and the dog will be fine. So I personally do a lot of rescue that way. I've rescued hundreds of dogs through the years. I never return any of my dogs. And so I make sure that when I rescue a dog, not only do I provide the care for the dog, but I find an outcome. So I work with transport partners, with rescue partners, shelters, and organizations, so that I can say, hey, if I take this dog and provide the cancer treatment, will you take the dog from me and help find it a home? And that way it alleviates a little bit of the pressure at the shelter for these animals. And it's also, vets have the highest rate of suicide of any profession. It is heartbreaking and soul-crushing work. And so I think it's a real uplifting thing for the shelter vets and the shelter clinic staff to see that there are people in the community, and I'm not the only one. There are many, many people who do it. Talking about the impact on our community, stray dogs are a problem. Nobody wants stray dogs running around their neighborhoods. You run into, dogs breeding on the street, puppies suffering unnecessarily. So, everyone in the community needs to be concerned about animal welfare. They need to be concerned about supporting animal services and the work that they're doing. It's very easy to cast blame and to fault them for the work that they do. But I always joke that they're not in the back breeding dogs. These are people who have a dog that they can't afford to sterilize, or have a dog that they don't bother to sterilize. Suddenly they've got 5 or 10 puppies, and what do they do with them? Often they end up at the shelter. So it really is a quality of life for everyone in our county. And I think we're all learning. I know that Annette is working really hard to pivot where she needs to find different ways to do the work. I think that we all need to find where we can support the shelter. I know you're familiar with the volunteers at the shelter and the importance of having volunteers there walking dogs when you have almost 700 dogs. One of the biggest needs is Monday to Friday, because these dogs are in their kennels 23 plus hours a day. They get frustrated. They start to become very reactive. It's a quality of life no one wants for our animals. So I urge everyone in the community to consider the population at the shelter, to consider the needs that we have, and to donate and to volunteer and to foster, so that we can all make an impact for the quality of life for people and for animals.
Tell me about the relationship. And I've seen my wife, the volunteer you're referring to, who spends actually more time at your shelter than she does with me. On many days. Coordination. She was up early in the wee hours of the morning before sunrise not too long ago because they had a van that was leaving. Walk us through that portion of how, even outside Miami-Dade County, you're tying hands with people to be able to make sure that these dogs have a good home, good medical care. So just walk us, either one of you, walk me through that process.
Yeah, so the transport program is really an effort where the entire country is coming together to address this overpopulation crisis. And so we do have partners in the Northeast, again, because of our partnership with FOMA and with Yolanda, we're able to connect with New Hampshire, Massachusetts, others in the Northeast, and then with Wings of Rescue. It's an organization that flies the dogs to their destination where they're going to have a forever home. So those are very important partnerships that we value so much. And the volunteers are especially emotional when we have those transports because they usually know those dogs very intimately, and they are so grateful and happy that they're going off where they know they're going to be adopted. So the volunteers on this particular Saturday a few weeks ago were there at 5 a.m. with Yolanda as well, who was walking dogs and getting them ready for that long trip to the Northeast.
Well, anytime a dog can fly, I'm all for that puppy.
Yeah.
There we go.
Right.
All right, Yolanda, will you look for your volunteers and people to aid you and what it is that you need to enhance and empower your organization? Tell me, what is it?
You know, I think what's important for us is that anybody who partners with us or works with us understands that the cornerstone of animal welfare in our community is our shelter. And I know that when I first started doing this work, the mayor at the time said to me, when I called and said, how is this possible? How can our shelter be run this way? He said, if you were going to come in and tell me you're terrible, you kill animals, you do a bad job, don't bother. I hear it every day. If you're going to come in and you're going to help us find solutions, please come in. And many times I've cursed the day that I called former Mayor Jimenez. But I think at the end of the day, I think what I'd like to see in volunteers and anyone who works with us or the shelter is the fact that there is no bad guy here. There is no bad person here. The reason the volunteers are so committed, and you know firsthand, is because they see the extraordinary work and commitment of shelter staff. They see the extraordinary challenges that they face, and they are always helpful. You don't see them attacking the shelter. You don't see them being critical of them. If there is an issue, they take it to leadership, they address it directly. So I think the most important thing for us, certainly with volunteers that we work with and anyone who works with us, is that we work together, that we are collaborative and that we look for solutions and not just to point a finger.
I know the mayor is a big pet lover, has pets herself, and has always been a big supporter of making sure that all the work that you all do is supported. In terms of our county, one of the other big things that she has addressed is a housing crisis here and affordable housing here. How has that impacted this when individuals are looking for a place that they can afford to live or have seen a significant rise and increase in their rents to be able to take care of themselves, and that impact coming, I'll use a word, trickling down to their pets or not being able to adopt a pet?
Yeah. So two things with the housing crisis. Number one, you're right. The increase of rent is making people have to make decisions as to, do we pay the rent or can we afford to have our pets and give them the quality of life that we want to give them? The other thing is Miami's changing. We're becoming a condo community. So a lot of those condos or townhouses have HOAs that limit whether you can have a dog or what size that dog can be. The mayor is concerned about that. We've talked about it. She's challenging us to find solutions for that, or ways that we can work with the HOAs to get them to understand that a pet could be a great thing. It doesn't have to be a deterrent for a renter or a homeowner.
Give us the information for people that want to donate to you and or come and spend their labor hours with you to keep you moving forward in a positive direction. How do they find you? How do they make sure that they can become part of this solution?
Thank you so much. So you can follow us on social at FOMA Pets is our social pages, and also FOMAPets.org, FOMAPETS.org. We receive emails every day from people wanting to volunteer, people wanting to foster, some people wanting to adopt, and we try to work with partners. So we feature Animal Services dogs, and we feature Humane Society of Greater Miami dogs or Paws for You, so that we try to build community, really bring more people under the tent. And, you know, Annette was talking about housing discrimination. When homeowners associations, even without homeowners associations, when landlords won't let you have a dog that weighs more than 10 pounds, you have people sometimes having to downsize, move from where they're living with their pet. And they're coming to the shelter and saying, I have to move to a smaller place. I can't keep my animal, or my landlord won't let me keep the animal. I know that the mayor has a housing group now that helps. I've referred an unhoused individual who was moving into a place and couldn't keep his dog. I've referred a family that was being told they couldn't keep their dog. So I think, you know, working together, and I know that our community has their finger to the pulse of a lot of this. So we always, at Friends of Miami Animals Foundation, we want to be a resource for the community. We want people to reach out to us and let us know how they can support the shelter, how they can support our animals. And you know, we're available all the time. I do this work 10 hours a day, so much like your wife.
Well, yes, we'll find you
at FOMA Pets.
And for people that want to come to the shelter and help, what would they do?
There's so many ways, but number one, adoption is the most important thing that we want to put out to the community. Please adopt, don't shop, and you know, we're getting into the summer months. Children are coming home from colleges. The kids are home from school. So if you can't adopt, but you can do temporary housing for a pet, then our foster program is available. And what that does is it provides the dog or the cat to get out of that shelter environment for a little while. They de-stress, they socialize, they get used to living in a family environment, and then they become much more adoptable and make better lifelong pets. Additionally, if you cannot foster, then we have Paw Ventures. Paw Ventures is where you can come to the shelter and take a dog out for a day. We give you a backpack with the leash, treats, a bowl, and you can spend your day connecting with that dog. Again, just getting him out of the shelter for a few hours will help him de-stress and come back more calm and ready to face another day, hopefully where they'll find their adopter. Volunteers are always needed to walk the dogs. Again, we have 650 dogs, so walking them with just our staff is not an easy task, but the volunteers provide so much quality enrichment to the dogs. So please come and volunteer. And the way you reach us is either follow us on Adopt Miami Pets, or call 311 and they'll direct you to the shelter.
Okay, and get your exercise and your workout in too.
Absolutely.
1,000%. Okay, now, obviously close and dear to my heart, our veteran community.
Yes.
And aiding and helping them. Yeah. You spoke, Yolanda, about the emotional connection between a pet, and especially ours, a person that has working dogs, that to that animal and how that can really benefit our community. I think especially even more so with some of our veterans. Can you both address what your thoughts are about that, things we may be doing where we can bring them together so that it benefits the animal and also benefits one of our veterans, and especially, you know, those of us that fly jets always say, hey, man, great and tremendous respect for people on the ground who are our Army veterans and our Marine Corps veterans and people that are actually, I always say, I've never been to Iraq, just over it. But the people actually been to Iraq have, some in our community, they need help and some assistance. And I think this is a wonderful way to be able to aid them.
One of the things that Animal Services is doing through a partner that we have also is it's a group called Charlie Mike. Mm-hmm. And Charlie Mike rescues dogs from shelters, and they train them to be companion animals for service personnel. I think they've taken 10 or 15 dogs from the shelter already. They're coming back and taking some more. So they're focusing on shelter dogs, which need placement, obviously, especially in an overpopulation community like ours. There's also a group called Pact for Animals, and they actually find fosters for service people being deployed. And so I think that, we were talking earlier about what can people do. There are all of these small groups doing a little bit here and a little bit there, but coming together, the fact that Charlie Mike started working with us, and as a result of that, they now partner with Animal Services. So when they need to replace their dogs that they've already found a home for, they go to Animal Services and they take dogs out of the shelter. And what they're doing is, again, training shelter dogs to become companion animals for service personnel. So there's a lot of that going on, and I think we're always looking for other partners and ways to explore that.
When you just mentioned that, and that was not something that I had crossed my mind in terms of when we have our forces and our military personnel deployed, here in South Florida, this is one of the #1 places in the country where we have military operations and veterans. When the Homestead Air Reserve Base, Southern Command, where I was stationed at, all of the Coast Guard facilities, this is the biggest, most busiest Coast Guard operation, the 7th district here in the entire United States. And when we have these young people deployed, many of whom are in their 20s, you think about it. They're not married yet, what you just said. They're not married yet. And then they have this responsibility for that person to go away and know that their pet is being cared for is really something that provides a tremendous amount of comfort.
Yeah, and we know it's so important for them in particular to have their pets because the pet is not just a companion. It helps them with anxiety, with depression. It really will help them cope when they're here back from deployment. So anything we can do to assist them staying together with their companion, or even if they want to foster for a little while they're here, we can accommodate that as well.
And if we need to recruit our friend Gus Cruz, the United States Marine over at the Miami-Dade County Board of Commissioners of Military Liaison, who does a fantastic job in our community. Wonderful. Gus and I saw each other with Frederica Wilson last week at Northwestern Senior High, where they were given their colors. So now their ROTC unit can do all of the ceremonies on their own, and they don't need assistance from other schools across the area. So it's fantastic. So we'll bring Gus in on that if necessary. We only have a couple moments left. I want to open the floor to both of you for final closing thoughts for our community to come forward and aid in this process.
So we want to thank everyone that partners with us. We can't do this work alone. The shelter is a place for the community's pets. These are your pets. This is your shelter. And the only way that we're going to be able to increase the quality of life for the pets in the shelter and diminish the number that are coming in is if we all work on this together.
Yolanda?
And to dovetail on Annette's comments, it's not only shelter animals that are being helped. The fact that they've done almost 20,000 free spay neuters in the community, the fact that the wellness vehicle is providing routine health services for pets. So the shelter is not just the shelter and their animals. The shelter really is a resource for the community. And I think the more each of us can do to support the shelter, the more the shelter is able to give back to the community. So I would urge everyone to work together.
Quick favorite story of one of your favorite animals in this process.
Favorite stories. I have a dog that I moved to New York. Dr. Duran, one of their population vet, called me, and apparently the owner of the dog died, and the dog was living with the daughter. The dog was attacked, had his whole neck ripped open. And she called me and she said, he's really a great dog. Is there any way you can help? One of the partners I work with in New York said, we'll take the dog. So I fostered him a little bit. We moved him to New York. Someone saw him on social media. They named him Frankenstein because, of course, he had all of these scars on him. But it's just one story out of many, many that I can tell you where someone at the shelter reached out and said, hey, we've got this really difficult case or this really special dog that we would love some help with. They all involve medical. They all involve extraordinary efforts. It's not just, oh, we've got a cute puppy, can you help us? It's, we've got this poor gentleman died and his dog was left behind, and now all of a sudden he's at a shelter with his neck ripped open. So I think that's just one small story to indicate how working together and the empathy that these shelter vets and shelter staff have, and the willingness of some of us in the community to lend a hand up and help the shelter and shelter pets.
1,000%. Ladies, thank you so much to both of you. We always thank the Miller brothers, Grant and Michael, for laying out this platform to be able to bring this information to our community. You two can't say it, but I do have a favorite breed, and that would be my German Shepherd. Because at my house, he's bigger than I am, so if he finds out I say anything different, I might have a problem when I get home.
There are some nice German Shepherds at the shelter right now.
Okay, there we go. I know somebody that might bring one home this evening.
Thank you, Willard. Thank you for everything.
Yes, ma'am. Ladies, thank you so much. And as always, we appreciate you being with us here on In the Know on the Miami Community News Network. God bless. Have a great day.